This is first lecture, right? Of polity. You had 2 lectures, I guess. Am I correct? 3 lectures. Okay, 3 lectures. So, geography, then history, and an introductory lecture by Tukaram sir, I guess. Okay. So, sir must have explained you things in detail, of course, right? And I'll also talk about it, but not in depth, not in detail. The purpose today is to focus on paper second, right? So we'll discuss paper second and the syllabus in general, and you can say some do's and don'ts, right? We'll also understand the scope of the syllabus, as some of you, probably all of you, will continue in the batch, and so we will see to it that we don't waste time in just an introduction, right? So the purpose of today's lecture is to explain you the syllabus, the scope, and its depth. So we'll go into details of the syllabus. I'll try to cover the complete syllabus today. If not, then of course in next lecture, whenever we are going to have a lecture, right, that time we'll complete the part of syllabus and then we'll start with the teaching of the concepts, right? So online students, those who are attending this on YouTube, you are requested to join through Zoom. The link is shared in the description box, so that would be better. And for you all sitting here, you can listen to me carefully, right? So my name is Pravin Patil. I've been teaching here in Munich since I guess around for 14 years now. I started in 2008. Before that, I also used to teach, but not in this institute. But then, yes, here I'm just about to complete 15 years. That was a great experience interacting with young minds like you. Though the syllabus remains almost more or less same, right? There have been few changes, but then in 2013, as some of you probably must be knowing, but then lectures doesn't seems to be monotonous or same. They have been changing every year, for that matter, with every batch. And thanks to you people, because the questions that you ask, they make lectures more engaging. So please see to it that you participate in the lectures henceforth. Not just polity, but I'm talking about all the subjects. For polity, it is more important. Your participation would decide the level of discussions that we can have here in the class. So before we start, there are a few points or a few things which I would like to share with you. First thing is, though we are going to talk about or discuss paper second, GS paper 2, but only polity part and not IR part. So IR will be taught by Jawad Qadi sir. So we will be dealing with almost 3/4 of the syllabus of paper second. Now, if you go through as we are going through, once we go through the syllabus, you'll get to know that there are several overlaps. So the concepts which we will understand here in paper second are going to help you in paper first, to a certain extent in paper 3, and of course in paper 4. To only paper second. So you have to have something called as an interdisciplinary approach while you are looking at it. It may be too much to talk about interdisciplinary approach in very first lecture, but then still I'm just trying to make you aware that this study is different from what is your experience in your curriculum till graduation. I hope some of you, or maybe most of you, must be graduate by now. Am I correct? Yes. Right. Some of you might be giving exams. आहे असं कोणी एक्झाम देणार, म्हणजे आता चालू आहेत एक्झाम्स वगैरे, किंवा येणार आहेत एक्झाम्स असं कोणी? हा, येस, ऑफ कोर्स, राईट. So your way of preparation for your curricular exams during your graduation, maybe your higher secondary and secondary schooling, was very different. And for UPSC, you are going to require a very different approach. And different method of study. So we cannot simply rely on some other notes which are shared in the class or maybe available on online. That probably would not help. Here you will have to take real efforts to jot down notes, to collect material, to understand it, to process it. That is the most important factor of preparation, and then reproduce it. I hope you are getting this. Rarely during your graduation, you might have processed the things which you have studied, right? And what you reproduce there is mostly what you mug up and then, right, during your PLs, preparation leaves. And thanks to Corona, most of you might have given exam online. So that was a heavenly situation wherein you must have enjoyed exams, isn't it? And probably sitting together in groups. Henceforth, the story is going to be little different. It's not going to be same as was your experience in last 2.5 or 3 years. There are multiple challenges as we are going to look after, or in fact going to study multiple subjects. So it is not necessary that you are at the first place you have an interest in that subject, and second you find those subjects easy or difficult. That depends of course on your preoccupied notions about the subject, right? History, for example, people find it boring, like what to read about those who have already done their part in their life, right? But it is one of the most fascinating subjects to be studied. For some of you, probably geography may sound a bit technical and you may not relate to it unless and until you find, you know, some phenomenon, climatic phenomenon sufficiently affecting your life. Till then you won't be forced to relate yourself with the subject. Same applies to polity. We in day-to-day life come across something called as politics, right? And not politics as a subject, but as a phenomenon that we see through newspapers mostly, and these days thankfully through news channels also. So that politics we are not going to study here. We are going to study Indian polity and constitution and governance, which requires understanding of concepts. Same applies to paper 4 ethics. Some of us have already gone through the phase wherein you might have attended the class of ethics in your I guess secondary or maybe secondary schooling. मूल्य शिक्षणाचा तास वगैरे असं काहीतरी. You must have definitely attended the same. This syllabus goes beyond that, right, and expects you to be original while you think, while you read, while you write in your exam. It's not difficult. Nothing of all these 4 papers, or for that matter, optional subject and essay. Nothing is difficult. It is little challenging. The reason being required skill set and the capabilities probably are lacking in some of you. Some of you might already be having those skills. So the process of 1 year of class here, or the duration here, would be ensuring that you get those skill sets and that ability to face the exam. None of us sitting here are promising you that you will clear and you will get first post or maybe whatever rank in the list. Anyone if is doing this is making fool out of it. The reason is it is up to you. It's not me who is going to make you through. Though students did mention different mentors do contribute, but unless and until you act, you work, right, we are helpless. I hope you are getting this. Not trying to shift the responsibility, right, but then this is reality. Like you cannot simply, like that there have been expectations from students that they come here, they sit for 2 hours and they expect like they'll get enlightened immediately in 2 hours and they'll understand everything what has been taught. That won't happen. There will be genuine efforts from our side to teach you things, to the level that you understand it. But still there are going to be limitations, right? Those limitations can be done away with by your efforts, right? That is basically reading things which we ask you to read. You must be ready with those things, already gone through. Whether you understand it or not, that is not a question, but you must read and then come for lectures. Please be very aware of the fact that we are going to have very soon, we are going to have 4 hours a day, thorough, in-depth teaching here. And that 4 hours a day is a big thing to deal with for you when you come from that educational system which have not engaged you to that level of intellectual difficulties. So unless and until you read, right, you won't be comfortable here. I hope you are getting this. This is not warning, this is suggestion, right? Though my tone sound like a warning, but then it is a suggestion to everyone. You read, you take efforts, come sit here and then understand things. Because see, you're going to study almost whatever you studied till your graduation, and then what you are going to, maybe some of you may study in your post graduation, right? Your last 10, 12 or maybe 14, 15 years custody, right? We're going to club this, squeeze this in 1 year. You're going to study history almost till the level of MA. You're going to study polity and constitution and governance almost still till the level of masters. Almost every subject you'll have to go into depth of and the heights of that particular subject as it is required in the exam. So you definitely need to take efforts. Are you all getting this? Right? And for us, the challenge is starting from scratch and reaching that height in 2 hours is a very big challenge for that matter. So it is always better if you study and come here, read things and come here. That is first thing. Now, second important thing. It would be better if you don't rush through the time and force yourself to give next attempt. Some of you might be planning that. I don't know, probably Pankaj sir or Tukaram sir might have already talked about this. But I still think formally it needs to be conveyed to every one of you sitting here. Formally, as an institution, as an individual, I'm telling you that don't rush through the time. Don't force yourself to give next attempt, that is 2023. Some of you might have thought that, no, I have only 1 year in a life and only 1 year I should, get through and become an IAS. That's good if you could manage to. I don't say that you cannot. You can. In fact, one can definitely. But then please understand the challenges first. You cannot simply daydreaming, I am an IAS now. Next year, prelims out of list. So please see to it that there are some practical things which you must be ready for, right? You must understand yourself. And I'm saying understand yourself. There is again a reason for saying this. Why? Till your graduation, you have been forced through a system. Am I correct? You have been trained that way. 10th का एग्जाम देना है, बोर्ड का एग्जाम 1 साल का पढ़ाई होता है कि किसी ने 2 साल देके 10th पास किया. देखो, you are laughing because you don't accept that notion that one may require 2 years, one may require 3 years, even a sincere candidate may require. What is wrong in that? There is nothing wrong. There is nothing objectionable. But we have been trained this way, isn't it? You all have been trained that way. No, 1 year. 10th ka exam. If you don't clear, I would say like the famous word is he failed or she failed. Failed. Maybe in one attempt one may fail. What is so big deal about it? Don't you think so? नाही, 1 वर्ष वाया गेलं. ही पण एक कल्पना असते नाही का आपल्या बरोबर. You have been also trained for this. 1 साल तुम्हारा, ऐसे कितने साल मिलेंगे तुम्हें? मतलब 10 ही साल है या फिर 20 साल का लाइफ है, 30 क्लियर डिमार्केटेड हर एक के साथ एक you have got one, chit from If God Exists. You have 25 years. So 10th एक ही साल में खत्म करो, नहीं तो एक साल गया तुम्हारा. We have been trained that way. So if you don't clear a prelims, immediately people around you, your colleagues, your friends, so-called seniors, your relatives, being more particular, would be immediately coming to you and say that, oh, you wasted your 1 year. What have you been doing for a year? Right? They understand hardly anything out of what you do here, but then still they will question it. So make yourself ready. Don't make others ready to accept that decision when you will switch the attempt, saying that no, I will not give this, but next. That should be your decision, not teachers, mentors, or institutes, or your parents, or for that matter, your relatives or friends. No, your individual decision. This year, I feel I'm ready and I will give the exam. I don't know whether I'll clear or not, but I am ready now for exam. That should be your individual decision. And we suggest, I'm saying now, not I, we as an institution, we suggest you don't rush through this 1 year. Take your time. There is no compulsion here. There are no, sectional or term end exams and assignments and blah blah blah. Ye kuch nahi rahega. Even if it is there, we will give you questions or at least articles or at least things which you need to read, right? And we will see like how do you perform. There is no merit that we are willing to look after. We simply here want you people to stay connected for one complete year. Don't bunk classes and ensure that you get things, as many things as possible from the lectures, right? Give yourself, in short, a time to build capacity that is required and skill set that is required to appear for this exam. I hope this is clear to everybody. Some of you may also start writing question and answer right away from first lecture. Don't do that. There will be a time and we will tell you when to. Right? There are stages in preparation. You cannot directly jump. Am I clear? Everybody? Yes. Is there anyone from 3 years integrated batch here sitting? Okay, one. Oh, good. Great. And I hope you all can understand what I'm speaking. Right? And those who are very first to this process, even 3 years integrated batch students, you're also going to face a lot of difficulties in understanding things here, as we won't be dealing only with the basics now. We will be jumping beyond those basics, right? Wherein you all are going to get a little bit stretched to your brain, not a little bit more stretched to your brain while you understand things. That is in general. Now, particularly for polity, let me give you a disclaimer here. Things would be highly easy, absolutely easy, right? There are only two prerequisites. One, you read and come. And second, the most important, second prerequisite, none of you will carry your understanding of concepts in classroom. Whatever you have understood till date, keep it there outside the classroom. Come and sit. I'll make you understand everything. Clear? You are free to ask as many questions as you want, as many answers in 2 hours. No limitation. I will answer or will try to answer almost all of them. Right? Polity lectures are going to be two-way communications, right? But if you don't read, it is possible that you may lose the context in the lecture and may find it really heavy to understand. ठीक? कळलं हे सगळ्यांना? Everybody. तीसरी तीसरा एक issue challenge with polity is words, jargons, concepts, which are going to, for most of you, are going to be new, absolutely new. But don't worry. I will teach from very basics, like what is difference between Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, whether Lok Sabha is at national level or state level. सगळं बघू आपण. सरपंच कोण असतो का म्हणजे नेमका. So right from scratch, I will teach you everything. ना जितना possible है, जो syllabus में आता है, पूरा. You will have to be patient. Clear? And last, before we start, and that is, it may be the case that some of you may have questions which are related to the topic, but that explanation of those questions may take a lot of time due to the fact that such questions may involve number of aspects. So I may, in between, I may say that if you don't mind, we will see this question and I will answer this question while we are dealing with that chapter. Thankfully, I remember all questions asked by students, and when I come across those questions, those particular chapters, or when we discuss those chapters, I'll jump back to the question, even if asked in first lecture, and we are discussing that topic in last lecture of our curriculum, still I will answer your question. Right? Is this thing clear? Okay. So then, let us start with paper second. Let us first understand what paper second is and what components do we have here. I will at least give you a fair idea of its depth, its scope. And one by one, then we will go into details of, later on, like in lectures, we'll go into details of these concepts. This being an introductory lecture or maybe first lecture, I should have kept it very simple, but I don't think so. I feel like directly introducing subject makes a sense instead of giving lecture on motivation. This is much better. So we have general studies paper 2. Yes, one more thing. Or maybe I'll tell you at the end. So we have Indian polity, Indian constitution, governance, social justice, and development processes. Apart from this, we have IR, international relations, in paper 2. Right? So this is not of our interest so far as polity lectures are concerned. We will talk about Indian constitution in detail, governance, social justice, and developmental processes. UPSC has not segregated the syllabus in this manner, but I think if you look at paper second in syllabus, it can, broadly be discussed or categorized under these 4 topics. You can certainly add a few more points in the same. And I'm talking about UPSC syllabus. You'll get online, different classes have given elaborate syllabus, right? Adding almost every single thing into the syllabus. We don't refer that. We are not going to refer that. We will only, here we will define the syllabus. We will go into details of different aspects. So let us see what first line of Indian constitution, or maybe first line of syllabus, says. GS paper 2. Historical underpinnings of the constitution, evolution of constitution, features, amendments to the constitution, significant provisions of the constitution, basic structure, and comparison of Indian constitution with other constitutions or jurisdictions. Now, even if we look at, this point, one point here, this will take at least 2 to 3 years for us to study this one point. It has that much scope. But when it is restricted to GS paper 2 and that to UPSC, we'll have to only go into those matters, those areas which recently have made news. Otherwise, if you sit and start working on every democratic constitution and comparing it with Indian constitution, that would be, a very difficult task. So what we are going to do is, while we discuss fundamental rights, I'll compare it with the other jurisdiction, and simultaneously in the lectures itself, I'll let you know that what are the provisions in other constitutions and what is different with us. And there have been questions in UPSC. The UPSC mains have asked about comparison of at least one question every year, comparison of Indian constitution and constitutional scheme with that of other constitutions. But then that doesn't mean that we'll start reading the constitution of US, constitution of Pakistan, constitution of Japan, and तब तो फिर UPSC छोड़ के कुछ और करना पड़ेगा. We won't do that. We will restrict ourselves to those areas, which are there in news. One, and second, which we are discussing, like fundamental rights we are discussing. We'll try and spread as much as we can, and jump into other constitutions. जितना मैं बता सकता हूँ उतना मैं आपको बताऊँ. Then there is something called as historical underpinnings. The term is very interesting. It says that basically, if you look at this term, it is what is it? History of Indian Constitution, right? But then from where are you going to read them? History of Indian Constitution starts from which year or which era? British era. 1774. Okay. 1909. See, there are different views. 1885, establishment of Congress. 1857, first war of Indian independence as termed by Savarkar. Whether it was or not, that is a different story. But then 1857. Can we still go back to 1757? Baksar. We can still go back to Prithviraj. नहीं अभी तो चल रहा है ना. देख रहे हो आप? मूवी देखा नहीं देखा? अरे बिल्कुल देखना चाहिए यार. हर मूवी देखो जो आता है. These days you must be getting it online, right? थिएटर में जाने की जरूरत ही नहीं है. Fast forward. कश्मीर देखा नहीं देखा? गंगूबाई? How many of you? अरे आशा वर्क क्या? Very good, very good. You must watch the movies. We are going to discuss some of them. है ना, पद्मावत and all. क्या करें भाई, अब सिलेबस इस तरह का है, आपको डिस्कस करना पड़ेगा. We'll discuss some of the things. Few days ago, Supreme Court has made some comments on. In fact, it is a decision on the area from where the Gangubai movie was. In fact, it is pictured. हम लोग देखेंगे जब हम लोग when we'll talk about equality and all that time, I'll bring those issues for discussion. So बिल्कुल देखना ही है, मतलब movies को बिल्कुल छोड़ना नहीं. By the time UPSC का पढ़ाई हो जाएगा, आपको movies देखना भूल जाओगे. So it is better अभी देख लो. Historical underpinnings कहाँ से चालू करेंगे? If you study and if you want to study, like from what time you think that from which date you think you should study, going back and searching for the roots of the constitution, you will finally end up into ancient age. But then that is not the scope of this point here in paper 2. Ancient, medieval, modern history जब आप पढ़ोगे, right? At that time itself, please ensure that you look at the history that is being taught here, and the history that you are going to read from your books. Look at it from polity perspective also. See the political developments. Can you relate something from Ashoka's administration to today's constitution? Can you relate something from probably Harsha's administration to today's constitution? Can you relate something from Akbar's administration to today's constitution? You will have to keep looking for it every now and then. Can we find some roots there in social and religious movements during India's freedom struggle, which have some reflections here in the constitution? So you'll have to be very vigilant about it. While you read something, look for it. That do you find anything that resembles with today's ideas of constitution, or maybe today's values which are mentioned in the constitution? That you have to do. I won't be teaching to that level, to that depth. But as somebody said, like regulating Act 7074, or maybe you may decide a date. Now that way also, like if you see 1774 onwards, then you are talking about only legal history of Indian constitution and legal background. But then here it talks about law, history of or historical underpinnings that may involve number of things. Whole freedom struggle is basically nothing but seeds for constitution. If you look at almost every single movement that took place during freedom struggle, is what? That movement basically tried to sow and nurture an idea to make people understand the struggle for freedom, and even in fact an idea of freedom, and then make them understand as well as accept the constitution that we are discussing today, or maybe which we will discuss next week. So looking at historical underpinnings, is not necessarily only going through all those regulating acts and charter acts and government of India acts. That won't help. That is there. That is there probably in a book called as Lakshmikant, compilation of notes. Lakshmikant ke pehle chapter mein mil jayega. That is not enough. While you read history ka NCERT, look for this. Getting it, everybody, right? So historical underpinnings. Next, the term is evolution. Now, evolution and underpinnings, what is the difference? Evolution essentially is of constitution. So basically, after constitution coming into existence, it evolved. So now you'll have to trace the history of last 75 years of India's independence, and 73 years or maybe 72 years of India being republic. So essentially from 26th of January 1950 till date, how has your constitution evolved is our interest when it comes to evolution. Again, let me tell you explicitly in the first lecture itself, we are not going to go through these topics exclusively, separately. While we are going through the topics of the constitution and the syllabus, right, we will go through them. Like, for example, basic structure, we will cover evolution there. Because to understand evolution, then right from first amendment till last amendment, the recent amendment, we'll have to read every amendment, and that makes no sense. That's not the way that you prepare for UPSC. Otherwise, if you happen to prepare for your academic exam, then you'll have to go through almost all those important amendments. So that is not our purpose here. We'll not go through all those amendments, but we'll definitely touch to important amendments, which do have a potential of appearing in exam. So we'll definitely go through them. Don't worry about it. So evolution. Now evolution is not only about amendments. Evolution also takes into or encompasses the way Supreme Court has interpreted different provisions of the Constitution. So by default, we'll have to go through number of case laws, the Supreme Court's judgments, and the way Supreme Court has tried to add some meaning to some silent and implicit words and arrangements of the Constitution. Like some of you, probably all of you might be knowing about Keshavananda Bharati, right? Yes, you must be knowing. जिनको मालूम नहीं है कोई बात नहीं, कोई गुनाह नहीं है, नहीं मालूम है, मालूम हो जाएगा, बहुत बड़ी बात तो है नहीं वैसे बड़ी बात है लेकिन मालूम हो जाएगा. So Keshavananda Bharati versus State of Kerala. In similar way, as some of you know it, some of you got acquainted it through maybe newspaper. So you will get acquainted with almost all major case laws through lectures. Those case laws, if you could manage to produce it on your paper while writing your mains, would make magic for sure. But then, of course, you have to be very strict about it. So evolution, one through amendments, as you can see the point here, and one through, courts interpretations. So these are the two ways of looking at how your constitution has performed over the period of time. That is nothing but evolution of the constitution. Now we have a few more points here. Features and significant provisions. We can club them together for our convenience, for that matter. And we can call them as salient features or maybe outstanding features of Indian Constitution. So some of them are significant provisions and others are features. What is your constitution is reflected through features. And why is it different than others? Through significant provisions. I hope you are getting it, everybody. So we'll club this together while discussing, and we'll discuss these topics under topic called as salient features or maybe outstanding features of the constitution. Then there is an interesting idea on the first slide itself. That is something called as basic structure. Probably the most important innovation which has ever taken place in the constitutional history of the world, right, is basic structure. And I'm saying of the world, not just of India. Though we innovated it, right, has been accepted and adopted by almost all democratic countries or the countries wherein constitutional governance is in place. So you'll find countries in African continent and South American and North American continent, even in Europe. Some of the countries or jurisdictions have accepted the concept of basic structure or doctrine of basic structure and have tried to apply it in their jurisdiction. So this seems to be one of the most important ideas which we are going to discuss, which may probably take around 2 lectures, maybe 3, depending upon what we are discussing, right? So basic structure. So what is basic structure? Let me just in brief tell you. Basic structure is nothing but club of foundational values on the basis of which you build the constitutional law or constitution, making it simple. Constitution लिखने के लिए आपके पास कुछ बेसिक आइडिया होना चाहिए, है ना? कुछ सेट ऑफ आइडियाज होने चाहिए. वो सेट ऑफ आइडियाज को ही बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर बोलते हैं. बात समझी? जैसे डेमोक्रेसी है, सेट ऑफ आइडिया है. You may not come across word democracy, or you will not surely come across word democracy in constitution. कहीं नहीं लिखा हुआ. But ultimately, the ultimate result of the constitution is nothing but democratic governance. So though it is absent. Secularism, for example, which is always in demand these days. Yeah? Probably the most breathtaking idea today in India is whether we are secular or not, right? Though it was established then that we are secular, then back then in 75 years back that we are secular. See, still we are engaging and investing our energy on cross-checking whether we are secular or not. So such ideas are very interesting, very interesting. If you delve into them, what they are, right? Once you are into it, you cannot come out of it. It is so interesting. आपको अगर पॉलिटी में इंटरेस्ट आएगा, आप उससे बच नहीं सकते थे। ये नहीं हो सकता कि सर मैं नहीं पढ़ूंगा, आप पढ़ने लगोगे, बस इंटरेस्ट आते तक की बात है। तब तक अपने आप को ट्यून करते रहो, है ना। पॉलिटिकल बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर, हम सबका बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर होता है कुछ ना कुछ, हर फैमिली का होता है बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर, हर कम्युनिटी का बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर होता है, दैट इज more or less defined by religious principles. Communities are governed by religion or social customs and laws. Mostly customs and social customs and traditions are based on religious principles, isn't it? So there are, every religion has got basic set of values which one follows. Am I correct? Right. In similar manner, you will find that the constitution has also got some basic set of values which needs to be followed for constitutional governance. I hope you are getting this. मागे लास्ट बेंचेस करते का? Let us move to the next point. Union and states. We'll discuss about what union is and what state is later on. That is a matter of a lecture or maybe two. दो एक लेक्चर लगेंगे, उस वक्त बात करेंगे। अभी फिलहाल मैं आपको just in brief I'll let you know what union and state is. Though the words I'm using wouldn't be correct, technically speaking, but just to make you understand what it is. Union is central government. Central government समझता है सबको? Very good. Prime Minister and Council of Ministers and your president and all. Very good. That is union, ऐसे समझ लो। एकदम बिल्कुल एकदम गलत है ये चीज, ऐसे समझना, लेकिन फिर भी ऐसे समझ लो आज के लिए, ठीक है ना। जब मैं समझाऊंगा what union is under article or part 1 of the constitution, then we'll go into depth of concept of what union word indicates, technically speaking, in constitution, and then how and where are we going to use it while writing an answer. So union, अच्छा states कहाँ होते हैं फिर? Are regional powers. State of Maharashtra, है ना, ये समझते हो सब? State of Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir used to be state earlier. Telangana, very good. These are states. They are basically regional entities. The word state can also be used for, or in a holistic manner, representing center, state, local self-government agencies, and everything that you identify or a common man identifies as government. Government servant also represents state. Now the question is, which state? So let's not go into that question at this moment. तो the concept of state हम लोग समझेंगे बाद में। अभी के लिए आपके लिए state क्या है? रीजनल पावर्स, वो समझता है? कितने हमारे पास? हाँ, 28, 29, 30, 27. Which one of the above options? 28. Sure. लॉक किया जाए मतलब 100%। चलो आप अगर आप बोल रहे हो 28 तो 28 मान लो, आप 29 बोलते तो 29, 30 बोलते तो 30, जो आप बोलोगे। कितने बताओ? है ना, 28 आए। There is something called as UTs, Union Territories. ऐसे कुछ सुना है आपने? दिल्ली के बारे में तो बिल्कुल सुना रहेगा नहीं? Yes. क्या है, दिल्ली यूनियन टेरिटरी की स्टेट है, लेकिन उनके पास सीएम है नहीं, चीफ मिनिस्टर, जैसे हमारे पास महाराष्ट्र में है, नहीं है। और उनकी बात चल रही है कि हमें स्टेट बनाओ, चल रहा है ना ऐसे कुछ। सॉरी, हाँ, पुलिसिंग के लिए उनको चाहिए। हाँ, हमारे हाथ में कंट्रोल रहे, पुलिस को हम कंट्रोल करें। ताकि लोगों के घर बुलडोज कर सके। तो यूटीज आपने कुछ देखे हुए, यूनियन टेरिटरीज की बात नहीं कर रहे हम लोग यहाँ पे। वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट दीज 28 एंटिटीज कॉल्ड एज स्टेट्स। और यूनियन कितना, यूनियन एक ही है। फिलहाल आप सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट स्टेट गवर्नमेंट मान लो, है ना? तो अब हम लोग करेंगे क्या, ये जो टॉपिक है, अंडर दिस टॉपिक व्हाट वी आर गोइंग टू डिस्कस इज बेसिकली फंक्शंस एंड रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज, किसके, यूनियन के और स्टेट। अच्छा चलिए, ऐसी भी बात नहीं है कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन क्लियरली डिफाइंस व्हाट द फंक्शंस एंड रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज ऑफ यूनियन एंड स्टेट। There are some areas where, like you can call them to be gray areas, overlapping areas, wherein you will find that there will be issues pertaining to federal structure, है ना? तो अब फेडरल स्ट्रक्चर क्या होता है, कुछ ज्यादा दिमाग लगाने की जरूरत नहीं, सिंपल है, सेंटर और स्टेट वाला अरेंजमेंट मतलब फेडरल स्ट्रक्चर। सिंपल क्या करते हैं इसको, एक नेशनल लेवल पे नेशन को रिप्रेजेंट करने के लिए गवर्नमेंट होगा, एक रीजनल लेवल पे रीजन को रिप्रेजेंट करने के लिए गवर्नमेंट होगा। बात समझिए कुछ, है ना? अब क्योंकि ये एक ही कॉन्टेक्स्ट, एक ही टाइम में, एक ही लोगों के लिए, एक ही पॉलिसी के अंदर काम करते हैं, इनको एक साथ काम करना तो मजबूरी भी शायद हो सकती है इनकी, है ना? तो दे विल वर्क टुगेदर, एक्सपेक्टेड टू वर्क टुगेदर। एट टाइम्स दे कीप फाइटिंग विद ईच अदर, है ना? Some of them, West Bengal and central government, न जाने क्या उनका पुरानी दुश्मनी शायद स्टेट ऑफ, ये पुरानी बिल्कुल नहीं है, अभी की है ना? अभी की दुश्मनी है। अच्छा चलिए, दुश्मनी की बात नहीं है यहाँ पे, लेकिन इनमें कुछ चलता रहता है नहीं हमेशा। केरला इतना दूर एकदम कोने में, फिर भी सेंटर को वही दिखता है नहीं, एकदम नजदीक है उनके यूपी, वो नहीं दिखता somehow। हाँ उन्हीं का, हाँ सही बात है, एक ही नदी का पानी पीते हुए। तो ये जो दो लेवल की बात कर रहे हैं हम लोग, सेंटर, नेशनल और रीजनल, इनको एक साथ काम करने के लिए बोला कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन। इन लोगों ने पढ़ा ही नहीं कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ठीक से, कुछ ही आर्टिकल पढ़ लिए उसने, इन लोगों ने अपना अपना मीनिंग निकाल लिया और काम चल रहा है। तो कभी झगड़े होते हैं, कभी एक साथ काम करते हैं, डिपेंडिंग अपॉन द सिचुएशन। उसी को हम लोग बोलेंगे इश्यूज एंड चैलेंजेस पर्टेनिंग टू दिस रिलेशनशिप व्हिच इज कॉल्ड एज फेडरल रिलेशनशिप। Federalism as a concept I will teach you later on while we discuss in the lectures. ठीक? Then we have something called as devolution of powers to local level or up to local level, है ना? अब ये समझते हैं पहले कि ये लोकल लेवल का मतलब क्या है। गांव मोहल्ला, है ना, आपका कॉलोनी वगैरह, ये लोकल लेवल नहीं है। हम लोग वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट वन लोकल जुरिस्डिक्शन, म्यूनिसिपैलिटी फॉर एग्जांपल, म्यूनिसिपल एरिया, है ना, एरिया कवर्ड बाय पंचायत, correct, that is a local level. So this is basically nothing but a third layer that we have created, है ना? 2 लेयर का सैंडविच खाते हो, अब 3 लेयर का बन गया। बात वही है एवरीबॉडी। तीसरा लेयर आपको दिखता है विलेजेस में, आपको दिखेगा म्यूनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशंस, म्यूनिसिपैलिटीज, नोटिफाइड एरियाज, है ना? You might have also came across something called as cantonment boards. Have you heard about it? Yes, very good. So what are these areas? ये cantonment board क्या होता है? मतलब वहां पे अंदर जाने के बाद पता चलता है कि यहाँ पे कुछ अलग ही चल रहा है ना? मिलिट्री रूल्ड areas, not ruled practically speaking, sort of administered areas. So ये कुछ layers है एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन के। एक हमें दिखता है नेशनल, एक हमें दिखता है रीजनल, और उसके नीचे हमें दिखता है, आप उसको लोकल बोल सकते हो। आप चाहो तो सब रीजनल बोल दो, लोकल बोलना ज्यादा बेटर है, ठीक है ना? एवरीवन, राइट? अब इनमें तो हमने देख लिया कि भाई इनमें कुछ लाइक यूनियन और स्टेट में कुछ इश्यूज हो तो इसके लिए कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ने कुछ बोला हुआ है। अब ये लोकल लेवल है ना, इसके लिए भी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ने हमने रिसेंटली अमेंडमेंट किए 73rd एंड 74th कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट, राइट? एंड दीज amendments created these layers, bottom layers you can say, the grassroots layers you can say. Now these layers were not supposed to act as an agent of center or agent of state. They were supposed to act as if they are like state government, like central government, but working in that restricted jurisdiction. What do you mean by that? अपने एरिया में वो राजा है, सरपंच, चीफ मिनिस्टर, प्राइम मिनिस्टर, इनको हम लोग अगर एक प्लेटफॉर्म पे लाके रखे तो वो डेमोक्रेटिकली सेम लेवल पे बैठेंगे। कुछ समझ में आई बात? क्योंकि प्राइम मिनिस्टर बोलेंगे मैं लोगों ने मुझे इलेक्ट किया है ना, तो चीफ मिनिस्टर क्या बोलेंगे? और सरपंच एलियन तो नहीं इलेक्ट कर रहे उसको। अगर डेमोक्रेटिकली देखा जाए तो ये तीनों भी हमें एक ही प्लेटफॉर्म पे रखने चाहिए। इनके जुरिस्डिक्शनल एरियाज जो है ना, जुरिस्डिक्शन का मतलब समझता है आपको? एरिया ऑफ एक्टिविटी समझ लो चाहो, है ना, उसमें कम ज्यादा हो सकता है। प्राइम मिनिस्टर लुक्स आफ्टर कंप्लीट टेरिटरी फॉर दैट मैटर और एंजॉयज दैट लेजिटिमेसी ऑफ पीपल ऑफ इंडिया। सीएम एंजॉयज फॉर अ रीजन and your sarpanch enjoys it for a village, correct? But then for a villager, sarpanch is far more closer, far more relevant, far more respectable than your PM. Are you all getting this? Everybody? Very well. Now keeping that in mind, one must also understand that whatever public funds which we collect, रिसोर्स बोलते हैं उसको हम लोग, टैक्स की बात नहीं कर रहा मैं सिर्फ, टैक्स तो उसमें से एक कंपोनेंट है। whatever public resource that we collect, right, the prime minister also has got almost same authority to use that fund, CM also has got same authority to use that fund, and you are correct. I'm not talking about legal and constitutional authority here. I'm talking about the right of a sarpanch, you know, to make funds and resources available for his village and people from his village, and right and authority and commitment of say prime minister and chief minister and sarpanch to make funds available for their respective jurisdictions is same, correct? But the issue is at local level you won't find that much amount of resource being collected. शायद उतना पैसा नहीं कलेक्ट हो सकता। किसी एक ट्राइबल रीजन में आप जाके देखो, वहां पे कोई सरपंच है तो उसके वो पंचायत का अर्निंग बहुत ही कम रहेगा ना, मतलब ना वो ज्यादा टैक्स ले भी कर पाएगा, ना वहां पे कोई ऐसी इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटी चल रही है उसमें से टैक्स कलेक्ट हो सकता है या फिर कोई प्रॉफिट हो सकता है। तो इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि जहां पे कलेक्शन हो चुका है, कहां पे? सेंटर पे, वहां से वो डिस्ट्रीब्यूट हो। बात समझे कुछ? अब डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन के जगह पे आप वर्ड यूज करो डिवोल्यूशन, है ना, दोनों सेम वर्ड्स नहीं है ना, लेकिन मैं डिवोल्यूशन का मीनिंग आपको इंटेंशनली अभी नहीं बताना चाहता। there are 4 words almost sound similar, something called as deconcentration, then decentralization, then there is devolution, and there is delegation, है ना? So we'll go into these words later on, these concepts later on, and why the word devolution of powers and functions and finances up to local level comes here. जैसे for example, there is nothing wrong in this, but then still, now metro is to be built in Pune, right? Metro. So for the its inauguration, we asked Honorable Prime Minister to come and inaugurate. Right? However, the Chief Minister of Maharashtra was absent probably that day because of some health issue. Let's not go into that. It makes more sense when you see the mayor of your city inaugurates your metro. तुम्हाला कळतंय का मी काय बोलतोय? Because you connect with him more than your prime minister. Are you all getting this? Metro is local issue. If if you say that no, he is a prime Indian, so must be like responsible for everything. Then every day while coming, I face a traffic jam in Pune University Chowk. So I should give a call to him that, see, hi, Honorable Prime Minister, traffic jam. आपको बात समझ में आ रही है? Everybody. So this is what is devolution of powers and functions and finances to local level. Local level को recognize करना और कैसे recognize करना as an independent organ or independent level of democracy. Administration नहीं, independent level or platform of democracy. फर्क है independent level or platform of administration and independent level of or platform of democracy. So it is democratic functions which needs to be performed by local agencies independent of national and regional agencies. National is central government, regional is yes state government. Correct. उनसे independent बनाया ना हमने. Third, 15th Finance Commission said that है ना कि ये इनका अब एज लगभग 20 साल का हो चुका है, ठीक है ना, इनके कंधों पे जिम्मेदारी दो तभी ये खड़े होंगे सही से. अदरवाइज इनको अब अगर आप अभी भी चम्मच से खिलाते रहोगे तो ये किसी काम के नहीं रहेंगे आने वाले 20 साल में. कौन? लोकल सेल्फ गवर्नमेंट एजेंसीज. आई होप यू गॉट व्हाट आई वांट टू से, राइट? सो some issues pertaining to local self government agencies and all we will be discussing under this particular topic, but then we will be, you know, we will blend this topic with federal studies or maybe ये जो फेडरेशन का जो हम लोग डिस्कशन करेंगे ना, इसके साथ हम लोग इसको पढ़ेंगे. समझ में आ रही है बात कुछ? वेरी यस, वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग. नेक्स्ट आइडिया, सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर्स बिटवीन वेरियस ऑर्गन्स, है ना. अभी मैंने आपको बताया समथिंग कॉल्ड एज डीकॉन्सेंट्रेशन, concentration and here we are talking about power to be separated and not concentrated in one particular organ of state. ठीक, इसको मैं थोड़ा सा सिंप्लीफाई करता हूँ. एग्जांपल लेते हैं, है ना, एग्जांपल लेते तो आपको सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर्स उसकी इसेंशियलिटी समझेगी. सुनाओ क्या? अरे बस किरण. So Kiran, you know, one fine day approaches me, comes to me, and had an argument, heated argument on one point. ये सेक्युलरिज्म के ऊपर डिबेट हो गया, लंबा चौड़ा, बिल्कुल सुना नहीं उसने. I got angry. किरण का काम now the friend of Kiran got to know about this, that there is one fellow who stabbed him, he died. Went to a police station to register a complaint. He saw me sitting there as a police officer, took the complaint, still took the complaint, right? Then he filed a case in the court against me, of course. On the first hearing itself, right, when they were in the court waiting for a judge, surprised to see me as a judge. So you know what will happen then. So they thought that no, it's something is incorrect here. Went to a legislative body, finding me as a CM, making law. Story ends there. Separation of powers is what? what will concentration of powers make? It will create a chaos. There won't be any order. If the power is to be concentrated, you don't need a constitution there. Constitution is essentially written, or maybe in an unwritten or uncodified form, is followed. The reason being, it creates a discipline in different organs of the state. How would they regulate, the affairs of the state? Are you getting it? And so keeping it separate makes a sense. But then the interesting thing is that how separate would it be? Would there be a clear-cut division and rigid separation of powers, or would there be a flexibility in separation of powers? So there are some constitutions which propagate an idea of rigidity in separation of powers. There are others, those who are highly flexible. But you must understand, neither too rigid nor too flexible would serve the purpose. So you must be finding it comfortable that ours is not flexible and not rigid. है ना, असं कुठेतरी वाचलं असेल तुम्ही, neither rigid nor flexible. आपने ये क्यों नहीं पूछा वहां पे? वही पे क्वेश्चन लिखना था. फिर what? If not rigid, if not flexible, then what? हाँ, so वो जो बैलेंस है ना, मिक्सचर या फिर स्ट्राइकिंग अ बैलेंस बिटवीन रिजिडिटी एंड will make you imbalanced throughout the preparation, because that is where comes the skills of the one who wrote as well as the one who is trying to understand what it is. देखो, कोई चीज रिजिड होना आसानी से समझ में आता है. देखो, जैसे आपको ये समझ में बहुत आसानी से आएगा, एकदम आसानी से. क्या? President must act according to the advice of Council of Ministers. कोई इसमें कोई क्वेश्चन? कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं इसमें. Article 53, however, says that the executive power of the union shall be vested in him. नीट ऐकायचं बरं का. बरं, ही पण बाब महत्त्वाची लक्षात ठेवा. While you sit for polity lectures, you have to be highly alert. So 53 says that the executive power of the union, shall be vested in him, and he shall use or exercise it either directly or through officers subordinate to him. Your Prime Minister and Council of Ministers have been made subordinate by Constitution of India to the President. तो सबऑर्डिनेट का जो एडवाइस है वो बाइंडिंग होता है. हाँ, तो पहले कौन सा आया था? आर्टिकल 53 आया था. उसके बाद 74 जो क्लॉज 1 बाद में अमेंड किया हमने, ओरिजिनल कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में तो नहीं था. तो अमेंडमेंट ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है कि ओरिजिनल कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन इंपॉर्टेंट? क्या? अच्छा, जो बाद में अमेंड हुआ वो इंपॉर्टेंट है. बिल्कुल. तो आपको राइट टू लाइफ दिया हुआ है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में. कल को हो गया अमेंड, निकाल देंगे ना. मतलब कोई बात नहीं. डोंट टेक इट अदरवाइज. There is nothing permanent in the constitution except for value base, है ना. सो डिफिकल्टी आपके साथ, मैं पहली बार यूज कर रहा हूँ वर्ड डिफिकल्टी, आपके साथ सिर्फ ये, इसलिए बोला ना मैंने, आपका जो अंडरस्टैंडिंग वहां छोड़ के आओगे बाहर, वो मैं एकदम लास्ट में बताऊंगा वो सही क्यों है, या फिर अगर है भी तो. UPSC, because it's becoming highly dynamic these days so far as mains is concerned, we cannot have rigid understanding of concepts and going for an exam. That would be difficult, frankly speaking. It is easy to let your mind be open for things. जितने भी हम लोग एस्पेक्ट समझ सकते हैं क्लास में बैठ के ना, उतने हम लोग समझने की कोशिश करेंगे. बात समझी? क्योंकि मुझे बिल्कुल मालूम है कि आप कहीं ना कहीं से ये चीजें पढ़ोगे, जैसे लक्ष्मीकांत है या फिर NCERT है. NCERT का मटेरियल इज गुड, और कुछ शायद आप कोई सीनियर से किसी और जगह से, यूट्यूब these days is good teacher. Then you have movies being teaching people these days. Kashmir Files example. किंवा आत्ताच ते चालू आहे ना, काय कोणचा मूवी आधी बोल, पृथ्वीराज, काय ते मी टाइटल पण नाही बघितलं है ना, वो ये मूवीज भी टीच करते हैं आजकल. हम लोग सीखते हैं अनफॉर्चुनेटली ऐसी चीजों से. तो कुछ पढ़ने की कोशिश करेंगे हम लोग एक साल में, है ना. कुछ रेफरेंसेस बताऊंगा मैं, जितना हो सकता है आपसे आप पढ़ो. यहाँ पे तो मैं शेयर करूंगा ही आपके साथ मटेरियल. तो रिजिड है कि फ्लेक्सिबल है आपका कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. तो आप बोलोगे नहीं सर मिक्स है, एकदम आसान है बोलना मिक्स, है ना. तो अगर मैं बोलूं कि इसमें ना कैसा है भाई, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में इंडिया के 75% रिजिड प्रोविजंस है, 25% फ्लेक्सिबल है. बोल सकते हैं कि ऐसा कुछ, या फिर 30% फ्लेक्सिबल, 70% रिजिड, 50-50 कर देते हैं. जैसे आपने और एक टर्म सुना रहेगा शायद, क्वाज़ी फेडरल है ना कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. क्वाज़ी फेडरल कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन मतलब नहीं मतलब पार्शली फेडरल, है ना. वैसे कितना फेडरल, 70%, 20%, 80%, 1%, 199, 298, 397. These things are situational, conditional, है ना. बात समझ में आ रही है आपको कुछ? एवरीबडी रिजिड नहीं है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. आप उसको रिजिड बनाओ नहीं आपके अंडरस्टैंडिंग में, है ना. आप वैसे समझोगे उसको जैसे आज की सिचुएशन डिमांड करती है. कोई आर्टिकल लिखा गया, there shall be council of ministers at the head of which there shall be prime minister to aid and advise president who will act according to the advice standard, 74 clause 1. इसमें प्राइम मिनिस्टर प्राइम नहीं है, पहले काउंसिल ऑफ मिनिस्टर का वर्ड लिखा गया, प्रेजेंस लिखा गया. तो वो क्यों लिखा गया रहेगा? ऐसे तो भी तो आर्टिकल बनाया जाए, there shall be prime minister who will choose the council of ministers to aid and advise president who will act accordingly. ये क्यों नहीं बनाया? हर एक वर्ड का, हर एक मीनिंग, हर एक आर्टिकल का कुछ मीनिंग है. ऑफ कोर्स वी विल नॉट बी गोइंग इनटू दोज मेनी टेक्निकल डिटेल्स. मैं वी विल नॉट बी डिस्कसिंग लॉ हियर, वी विल बी डिस्कसिंग पॉलिटी. बट लेकिन मैं बिल्कुल ये चाहूंगा आप रिजिड रह के नहीं सुनना इस चीज को, है ना. नहीं तो आप बिल्कुल आंसर नहीं कर पाओगे क्वेश्चन यूपीएससी के. समझ में आ रही है बात? चलो. सो सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर्स देखेंगे हम लोग, किस तरह का सेपरेशन किया. मतलब अगर मेस ही क्रिएट किया इन्होंने तो क्या मेस क्रिएट किया वो भी तो देख ले कम से कम, है ना. इट इज वेरी ब्यूटीफुल थिंग. जो रेसिपी उन्होंने बनाई ना और पका के हमें दी, इट इज वेरी टेस्टी. हम ही ज्यादा अब बाहर से बैठ के नमक ऐड कर, मिर्ची पाउडर ऐड कर, ये हमारे उद्योग अभी चल रहे, मतलब रिसेंटली. समझ में आ रही कुछ बात? बाद में समझ में आएगा और डिटेल आपको, कोई बात नहीं. सो सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर्स बिटवीन वेरियस ऑर्गन्स. अच्छा, ये वेरियस ऑर्गन्स का मतलब क्या हुआ? तो यहाँ पे हम लोग जुडिशरी की बात करेंगे. वी विल टॉक अबाउट एग्जीक्यूटिव, विल टॉक अबाउट लेजिस्लेचर, राइट. विल ऑल्सो टॉक अबाउट इलेक्शन कमीशन, देन यूपीएससी, देन यू हैव कैग एंड अटॉर्नी जनरल एंड ब्ला ब्ला ब्ला, बहुत सारे इंस्टीट्यूशन. तो इन सभी के बारे में हम लोग बात करेंगे, वेरियस ऑर्गन्स. ठीक, एव्हरीवन लक्ष द्यायचं माझ्याकडे पूर्ण. तुम्ही जे काही प्रायव्हेट आणि पर्सनल गोष्टी करत असता लेक्चर मध्ये, कधी कधी असतात अशा, त्या सगळ्या लेक्चरच्या आधी करायच्या नाही, ते लेक्चर झाल्यानंतर करायचं. इथे फक्त दोनच गोष्टी अलाउड आहेत. एक, माझ्याकडे लक्ष देणे. दुसरी गोष्ट, इफ यू आर फीलिंग स्लीपी यू कॅन कॅरी अ कप ऑफ टी और अ कॉफी अँड सिट हियर, है ना. कळलं? एव्हरीबडी. नाही पॉसिबल आहे ना, म्हणजे 2 तास. No, you can do that. I don't have any issue with that. I just want you people to stay attentive. That's it. Dispute redressal mechanism and institutions. इसको एक वर्ड में रख देते हैं अभी और फिर आगे चलेंगे. आप कहां जाते हो डिस्प्यूट रिड्रेसल के लिए? काही झालं तर आपण काय म्हणतो, कोर्टात, तुला कोर्टात खेचणार, तिथेच डिस्प्यूट रिड्रेस है ना. होता है नहीं होता वो बाद में देखते हैं, लेकिन डिस्प्यूट रिड्रेसल मैकेनिज्म तो हमारे पास है ना, मैकेनिज्म है, ठीक है. ट्रिब्यूनल्स एंड ऑल बहुत सारे हमारे पास. उसी तरह से कुछ इंस्टीट्यूशंस भी है. देयर आर सम इंस्टीट्यूशंस जो डिस्प्यूट रिड्रेसल में काम करते हैं, कुछ है जो एग्जीक्यूशन में काम करते हैं. जैसे आरबीआई की बात कर सकते हैं हम लोग, आईआरडीए है ना. देन यू हैव सेबी एंड ऑल. ईडी की बात शायद सुने रहोगे आप आजकल. ईडी इज इन न्यूज दीस डेज. सीबीआई, एनआईए वगैरह वगैरह. Some of them are investigating agencies, some of them have got quasi judicial powers, and so they also go into deciding the matters. कुछ उसमें से. ठीक. नेक्स्ट पॉइंट पे चलते हैं, पार्लियामेंट एंड स्टेट लेजिस्लेचर. मेरे ख्याल से ये तो आपको समझता ही रहेगा. पार्लियामेंट मालूम है सबको? लग नहीं रहा सबको मालूम. तो ये दिल्ली में होता है. अब नया भी बन रहा है. आपके लिए नहीं, मतलब आपको जगह नहीं मिलेगी अभी इमीडिएटली वहां पे, लेकिन बन तो रहा है, मतलब और एक नया बन रहा है. तो जो पुराना है बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहा था, लेकिन फिर भी नया बनाने की जरूरत पड़ रही है. ये क्या करते हैं, लेकिन ये इंस्टीट्यूशन करता क्या? तो ये लॉ बनाने का काम है इनका. एकदम प्राइमरी अगर काम देखा जाए तो इनका काम है कि ये लॉ बनाए. दूसरा इनका काम है कि जो दोज हु आर गवर्निंग, मतलब चलिए सिंपल बनाते हैं इसको, प्राइम मिनिस्टर और काउंसिल ऑफ मिनिस्टर है ना, इनको सवाल पूछना. ठीक है, जवाब मिले नहीं मिले कोई बात नहीं, सवाल पूछे जाएंगे. नहीं एक्चुअली वैसे ही सवाल पूछना ही इंपॉर्टेंट है. इसके लिए हमने बनाया इंस्टीट्यूशन कॉल्ड, हमने नहीं बनाया एक्चुअली, ब्रिटिश बना के गए, हमने फॉलो भी किया काफी हद तक. आजकल रिसेंटली कुछ हमारा जम नहीं रहा हो पार्लियामेंट से फिलहाल, लेकिन बना तो दिया. और ये क्या करते बताइए? लॉ बनाएंगे. ये हर छोटी मोटी चीज के लिए लॉ बनाया जाता है. और उसके साथ साथ ऐसी चीजें जहां पे लॉ नहीं बना लेकिन कुछ पॉलिसी बन चुकी है ना. तो पॉलिसी रन करने वाले लोग कौन है? तो वो आपके एग्जीक्यूटिव, जैसे आप जिन एग्जीक्यूटिव नाम से जानते हो ना उनको, है ना, जैसे प्राइम मिनिस्टर एंड काउंसिल ऑफ मिनिस्टर एंड पीपल वर्किंग अंडर देम, आईएएस ऑफिसर्स, आस्किंग क्वेश्चन टू देम. ये इनका काम है. इसके साथ साथ ये बाकी कुछ और भी काम करते रहते हैं वहां पे बैठ के. कभी कभी बहुत ही गुस्सा आया तो फिर माइक वगैरह उसका भी यूज करते. राइट, फ्रीडम ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन है ना. बेसिक आइडिया अगर हम लोग देखेंगे पार्लियामेंट का एग्जिस्टेंस इसलिए है कि वो एक, क्योंकि नेशनल बॉडी है ना, नेशनल पॉलिसी मेकिंग करे. नेशनल पॉलिसी मेकिंग के लिए इट इज अ फोरम debates, deliberations, discussions of whatever intensity, a formal policy statement should come out, and that would guide us in future course of action, us as a country. ये उनका काम है पार्लियामेंट. वैसे ही स्टेट लेवल पे होता है जिसको हम लोग बोलते हैं स्टेट लेजिस्लेटिव असेंबली एंड स्टेट लेजिस्लेटिव काउंसिल. तो कुछ स्टेट्स है जहां पे काउंसिल्स है ना, विधान परिषद, कुछ है जहां पे नहीं. इससे ज्यादा कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, ठीक, लेकिन इनका बेसिक काम यही है. जो पार्लियामेंट नेशनल लेवल पे करेगा, ये लोग रीजनल लेवल पे करेंगे, स्टेट लेवल पे करेंगे. ये भी डिस्कशंस डेलिब्रेशंस करते हैं, बिल्कुल लॉ पास करेंगे. इनमें भी काफी इंटेंस डिबेट्स एंड डिस्कशंस होते हैं. अभी आपने महाराष्ट्र स्टेट लेजिस्लेटिव असेंबली वाले देखा ही रहेगा कुछ, शायद देखा ही नहीं, कुछ लोगों को तो मालूम रहना चाहिए मेरे ख्याल से. कुछ 10-12 लोग तो एकदम मतलब पब्लिक इंटरेस्ट में इतने ज्यादा इमोशनली एक्टिव हो गए थे कि क्या बताएं, मतलब उनको सस्पेंड करना पड़ा. समझ में आ रही है ना बात? तुम्ही वाचता ना रे न्यूजपेपर? बरे असतात वाचलेले न्यूजपेपर, दररोज वाचायचे. So state legislatures, हमारे पास state legislature है. हाँ. अरे नहीं, हाँ सही बात है, हो तो गया, लेकिन यू आर राइट, बट देन देयर इज अ डिबेट. हो सकता है, नहीं, मैं वही बोल रहा हूँ, मैं आपको यही समझा रहा हूँ, हो सकता है कि नहीं हो सकता. ये सिचुएशनल है. Honorable Supreme Court said that this is an incorrect decision. Am I correct? And asked them to assume the position again. बरोबर ना म्हणजे? If I may ask a question, under which provision of the Constitution did Supreme Court decide that this matter is within their jurisdiction? Practically speaking, the matter under the Assembly should be decided by the Speaker. तो फिर सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बहुत पहले ही बोल दिया कि नहीं, स्पीकर तो यार वो एक ट्रिब्यूनल है और हर ट्रिब्यूनल हमारे अंडर आता है. सब जगह पे यही चल रहा है, मेरे अंडर क्या क्या है. मैं समझाता हूँ आपको, ये चीजें डिटेल समझाऊंगा, अभी मैं बस इसमें डिटेल जाना नहीं चाहता, है ना. लेकिन बट पार्शियली यू आर करेक्ट, गलत नहीं है. देखो, हियर वी आर नॉट टू टेक अ साइड ऑफ अ पर्टिकुलर पार्टी, पर्टिकुलर इंस्टीट्यूशन, पर्टिकुलर इंडिविजुअल. हमें क्या समझ में आना चाहिए, what your constitution says, what is an issue, and what if you come across a question in your mains on that issue, what will you write. समझ लगा. but by default, like अगर इतना ही मतलब कैसे सिर्फ स्केलेटन को बॉडी नहीं बोलेंगे ना, हम लोग फ्लैश ऐड करना पड़ेगा, तो मैं ऐड करते रहूंगा, ठीक है ना. तो इश्यूज इंपॉर्टेंट है, उसके प्रोविजंस इंपॉर्टेंट है, आपको समझना भी इंपॉर्टेंट है, लेकिन वो समझने के लिए जो कॉन्टेक्स्ट है ना बाहर जो हमें दिखता है, वो हमें बिल्कुल विल हैव टू टेक इट इनटू कंसीडरेशन. नीदर नॉट गोइंग इनटू पॉलिटिक्स ऑफ इट एट ऑल. आवर इंटरेस्ट इज नॉट इनटू दैट. राइट. सो पार्लियामेंट एंड स्टेट लेजिस्लेचर. सो स्ट्रक्चर, फंक्शनिंग, कंडक्ट ऑफ बिजनेस, पावर्स एंड प्रिविलेजेस and issues arising out of it. So we have got these subtopics under topic called as Parliament and State Legislature. So structure of the Parliament, like it has got two houses. Same applies to state, some of the state legislatures. However, rest all are unicameral. So either you have bicameral or unicameral state legislature or central legislature. Then how do they function? What are constitutional provisions for their functioning? How the bills, different bills are introduced, how they are passed, what are the procedures? Like you must have definitely heard a news that farm laws were not properly introduced in the House, and there wasn't a debate on the same. And initially, at the first place, there was an ordinance promulgated, and there was a lot of discussion on the same. तो ये डिबेट हुआ कि यार पार्लियामेंट में डिबेट होना चाहिए था, देन सिलेक्ट कमेटी को भेजना चाहिए था, वगैरह वगैरह वगैरह. तो ये सभी चीजें, इसमें से कुछ चीजें प्रोसीजरल पार्ट में आती है कि हाउ एग्जैक्टली अ पर्टिकुलर लॉ, पर्टिकुलर पॉलिसी is being kept in the House, and then how exactly it is being passed. So that falls within the term called as functioning and conduct of business. So practically speaking, conduct of business involves number of things, right from the powers and privileges of every single member of the House, till how they discuss, debate and pass and vote a particular matter. यहाँ तक हर चीज हमें इन दो टॉपिक्स के अंदर देखनी पड़ेगी. अब उसके साथ साथ ये एक इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट है जहां पे आप देखोगे powers and privileges arising, issues arising out of it. Powers, privileges, किसके powers और किसके privileges की बात कर रहे हैं? Members of state legislative assembly as well as members of the parliament. Right, so you'll find that the members of the parliament have got some privileges, like they cannot be questioned in the court of law. I mean to say, like while they are members, right, while they are members of the committees of the parliament and all, cannot be summoned in court of law. There are restrictions, right? I mean to say, like exceptions, but then there are general provisions of the constitution, under constitution, If you look at 105, 102, 103, they provide for some of these privileges and immunities of the members of the parliament, as well as members of the state legislature. And these immunities basically are great protections to the members of the parliament. Like for example, one of the members of the parliament, while discussing in the parliament itself, used some unparliamentary words which were highly objectionable, addressing a particular community. And the speaker should have immediately taken an action against the same member and should have at least suspended him or her for few days. Unfortunately, speaker did not. Speaker didn't do that. The only thing is that, fortunately, that wording or that speech is not in record. But that time it was available online. It became public. Now, what if the same person would have made same statements in public and not in parliament? Probably he or she would have been booked for some other section of IPC. Definitely. It was that problematic. But then because that member said it in the house, is protected from law and legal proceedings in the court of law. So this is a protection given to them. That doesn't mean that they can keep saying whatever. They do otherwise also. But then this protection is given intentionally to ensure that the floor remains free for members to participate and participate for the policy making, participate for directing the progress of nation. However, most of them, not all, of course, focusing on their individual progress, it seems from their discussions. But these privileges and immunities are necessary to ensure that your parliament works as an independent constitutional agency, और इसलिए protection. बात समझ में आ रही है कुछ? Everybody. So powers, privileges, and issues arising out of the same. Time doesn't permit, but then still, let me just give you an example. One of the recent issues which came out of these things in Maharashtra. There is some news channel, उसके एक anchor है, कोई एक news channel है, उसके anchor made some comments without following the said ethics and was booked for violation of privileges. बेचारे जेल में एक दिन, एक दो तीन दिन, मतलब जान नहीं ज्यादा दिन. फिर सुप्रीम कोर्ट finally released, got relief. The anchor said that this is my fundamental right to speak. Of course, it is, no doubt. What to speak is also important. On the other hand, the members of the state legislative assembly thought that it is violation of privileges and dignity of one of the members of the assembly. I just don't want to quote the names intentionally. It is not difficult. I mean, nothing restricts me, but then still maintaining the decorum here. So the member of the state assembly thought that it is violation of his privilege. Action was taken. Supreme Court said that no. Supreme Court issued a notice to the state legislature, secretaries to state legislature. For what reason did you take an action against him and booked him for the charges of violation of privileges? The explanation definitely was given, right? But by then the amount of punishment which was to be given was already given. Finally, Supreme Court said that you are free now. So he was posing in front of cameras as if like he won the World Cup and all. and later on somehow after that particular case, it appears that he has shut his mouth. Somehow, I don't know, because I never used to listen, but then I never watched that particular show. I don't know, अभी का सिचुएशन मालूम नहीं मुझे कि आप में से कुछ लोगों को समझा रहेगा मैं किसके बारे में बात कर रहा हूँ, आपने देखा भी रहेगा। तो बस वही चीज है कि ये इशू है। अब इशू यहाँ पे थोड़ा सा ट्रांसपेरेंटली देखते हैं। अब 2 मिनट के लिए समझो कि आप वो न्यूज एंकर हो, तो क्या आपके पास वो फंडामेंटल राइट नहीं है टू स्पीक and express your concerns in the interest of public at large? If you find that your government agencies are not doing up to the mark or not performing up to the mark, of course you do have that power under constitution to do so. So this is not new debate. I just try to refer to recent example, but then there have been list of cases which I can tell you. In Maharashtra, it was very formal and very procedural. There was one case which took place in UP State Legislative Assembly के बारे में लिखा गया एक न्यूज़पेपर में, मैगजीन में, बाद में बताऊंगा केस पूरा। The editor happens to be from Mumbai, Bombay. उधर से यूपी पुलिस इधर पकड़ के लेके गए। अच्छा चलो लेके गए, रखे कहाँ पे? होटल में 7 दिन तक locked in hotel, not produced before judicial magistrate or maybe speaker, कुछ नहीं। Finally Supreme Court said that भाई वो नहीं मालूम उन्होंने क्या बोला, whether it amounts to violation of your privileges or not, that is different story, altogether different question. The primary question is it is violation of his fundamental right under 21 and 22, so 21 and 22। छोड़ो उनको, छोड़ दिया गया। तो यहाँ पे issues arising out of it जो लिखा हुआ है ना आपके सिलेबस में, यहाँ पे it is essentially with respect to your fundamental right to speak, right to speech and expression, है ना, उसकी बात करेंगे हम लोग। समझ में आ रही है बात सबको? गुड। बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग केसेस है, मतलब इंडिया इज एक्चुअली एन इंटरेस्टिंग कंट्री, तो उसमें लोग और ज्यादा इंटरेस्टिंग, इसीलिए हमारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एकदम फंक्शनल रहता है, वाइब्रेटिंग एवरी टाइम। दीज डेज वाइब्रेशन की फ्रीक्वेंसी वेवलेंथ एकदम अलग लेवल पे है फिलहाल। आगे देखते हैं, चलिए। आई होप यू गॉट दैट दोज पॉइंट्स, राइट? स्टोरीज आप थोड़ा फिल्टर आउट कर दो, उससे बचा हुआ जो है ना उतना भी आप अभी फिलहाल समझ लो ना, तो वो काफी है पहले लेक्चर। Next, we have structure, organizations and functioning of executive, judiciary and ministries and different departments of the government. Now this also is, if you look at this is basically nothing but 2 more organs of the state. पहले हमने अभी बात की पार्लियामेंट की और स्टेट लेजिस्लेचर की। अब यहाँ पे ये स्लाइड पे हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं, we are talking about executives and judiciary, है ना? तो executives कौन है? जो आप बनोगे कल, परमानेंट एग्जीक्यूटिव, राइट? और आपके साथ साथ काम करेंगे टेम्पररी एग्जीक्यूटिव जो इलेक्टेड रहेंगे, है ना? साथ साथ बोला नहीं, ठीक है? नॉट सुपीरियर टू यू, सो दे विल बी वर्किंग अलोंग विथ यू, राइट? सो टेम्पररी एंड परमानेंट एग्जीक्यूटिव, ऐसे 2 हमारे पास ग्रुप ऑफ एग्जीक्यूटिव्स दिखते हैं हमें, एंड दे वर्क। सो विल हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड देयर स्ट्रक्चर, how do they work, what powers under constitution do they have, right? What are compulsions or constitutional compulsions, constitutional limits on their function, their powers, वो हमें यहाँ पे समझना है। So far as this and these 2 points are concerned, ministries and different departments and the executives, clear, right? So like you might be knowing that, क्या example दूंगा? So Prime Minister of India, if asked the question in the House, would be giving an answer to the House. He will be answering the questions. It is his constitutional compulsion to give an answer when the question is asked to him. And now not just to Prime Minister, but to every single minister sitting in the power, right? Would be asked a question if so required. Now such questions must be answered. Must be answered. There is no provision under which, or no excuse, legal or maybe constitutional or whatsoever, under which they may say that no, I will not. They are answerable. Now through them, practically speaking, all the executives, those who are permanent executives like IAS officers and secretaries to the government of India, deputy secretaries and additional secretaries, and all the chain of all secretaries, they all are answerable to people through such questions. So you are and my representatives, those who sit there and question the ruling party, right? They basically perform a democratic task of holding government accountable to people. है ना? So जब हम लोग ministries and departments and executives की बात करते हैं, तो essentially we are talking about those who are running the government. In fact, you can say that those who are administering the collective affairs or collective or common affairs, those who work in public domain, है ना? जैसे कोई प्लान बन गया, पुणे मेट्रो बनाना है भाई, इतना इतना खर्चा आएगा, ये कंपनी को उसका कॉन्ट्रैक्ट दिया हुआ. The opposition, somebody sitting in the opposition would ask a question: was there a fair procedure followed while giving the contracts? So the minister concerned or responsible is responsible to answer, would be giving an answer, so that people will get to know that okay, fine, that was a fair thing or not fair thing, whatever is the case. है ना? 2G scam and all, might have said demonetization and etc. etc. डिमोनेटाइजेशन पे तो सवाल पूछे, आंसर कुछ उसके एकदम इंटरेस्टिंग आ गए. क्वेश्चन तो डेफिनेटली पूछा जा सकता है. बात समझ में आ रही है कुछ? Then we have judiciary. So again, if you see judiciary and judicial setup in India, you know, we have Supreme Court, and under Supreme Court we have got high courts almost in every state, not each and every. Under high court we have got subordinate courts. Some of you may call them to be district courts, right? So this is basic pyramidal structure of judicial setup in India. But apart from that, we have got some allied institutions also, which practice quasi-judicial powers, partially judicial powers. So we have tribunals, National Green Tribunal, probably Maiti aseल तुम्हाला, Maiti? National Green Tribunal, Water Dispute Tribunal, असं ऐकलंय, हे ऐकलं, Water Dispute Tribunal, Company Law Tribunal, Administrative Tribunals, CAT, MAT. So there are tribunals, military tribunals are also there. These are also, for that matter, judicial bodies, but they don't resemble with the court as it is. The word court signifies something else, indicates something else. Tribunals are special or special bodies looking after disputes arising out of technical matters, mostly technical matters. So we have created tribunals. Then there are other bodies, like as I said, SEBI, IRDA, then you have RBI. These bodies, if you look at, you won't find them to be, or you won't relate them to courts. They are not, certainly not. But these bodies definitely have got some powers to regulate. Wherever you have power to regulate, you will find that such regulatory bodies have got partial judicial powers, quasi-judicial powers. I'll explain you like this or teach you this later on in detail. What do you mean by partial judicial and maybe that we'll discuss. So SEBI, IRDA, RBI, and tribunals are also sort of dispute redressal agencies as well as regulatory agencies. Though we will not club them in judicial setup, we will not consider them in judicial setup, but they, relieve the judiciary of its burden. Samajhta hai, right? So we will also look at judiciary, judicial setup, its functioning, its organization, its powers, and etc. And simultaneously, we'll go into details of what different tribunals are and what are their functions. Of course, not each and every. It would be difficult to teach you each and every institution. Let me make it very clear at the outset itself. Right? Don't expect that we will be going into details of RBI, going into details of SEBI and IRDA and all such regulatory institutions. Highly impossible. In given set of lectures, we won't be able to. But yes, definitely, I'll give you broad framework how to look at any regulatory body. What questions can we expect and how can we answer those questions, right? So that is about this part. Next, we have role in polity of pressure groups and formal and informal associations. Now, you might have heard about pressure groups. I think so. Anyone? Farmers Union. So during farm laws and the protest against farm laws, what did farmers do? Organized a protest, peaceful, right? Peaceful protest based on ideas, based on they are going to succeed. Right? They continued for almost more than a year for that matter. Probably after independence, that was the first ever mass struggle or maybe mass protest that we saw. Finally, they could pressurize government effectively to withdraw the laws. Am I correct? See, the question is not whether laws were good, bad, correct, incorrect. That is not a matter of discussion here at this moment. But they organized themselves and pressurized government to get the things done they wanted. Barabar, na? Yes or no? Now, where are they now? Like, the laws have been withdrawn, and what are they doing now? Maybe they are doing their regular activities. Maybe they are establishing new organization and party and contesting election and etc. etc. Why are they not on streets now? The pressure groups won't. Pressure groups would work. They would come together. People sharing same interests. Interest I'm saying. Background name. People having same interests would come together, would form a group, would fight for that particular interest, get it from the power or those, no, not power, institutions. And once that is being delivered to them, their purpose of coming together is over. Maratha reservation, Maratha Mukha Morcha. High Court finally gave a judgment that there is a reservation, scope for reservation. Correct? Yes or no? हो गया काम खत्म सब घर पे. Supreme Court said that this doesn't fit into constitutional scheme. अब कहाँ है कहीं डिमांड भी है शायद कोई प्रेशर ग्रुप नहीं तैयार हुआ अभी है ना. बात चल रही है, हम भी बात करेंगे. आर्टिकल 15 पढ़ोगे ना? नहीं, रिजर्वेशन पॉलिसी नहीं. अगर आप नहीं चाहते तो नहीं बात करें, कोई बात नहीं. आर्टिकल 15 ऐसे ही पढ़ा के आगे चलेंगे. कहां से आया, क्यों है, किसके लिए, जरूरी है कि नहीं है. कुछ लोग तो रहेंगे ये रिजर्वेशन निकालना चाहिए पहले, इसको पहले निकालो, या फिर एक तो सबको दो या फिर किसी को नहीं दो, है ना. दूसरा ऑप्शन है इकोनॉमिक ग्राउंड पे दे दो, बात खत्म, मतलब सबके लिए जस्टिस हो जाएगा वो, है ना. तो ये सभी अंडरस्टैंडिंग का क्या करेंगे हम लोग, कोई अंडरस्टैंडिंग आपका जो लेके आओगे यहाँ पे लेके नहीं आओगे, बात करेंगे, समझेंगे चीजें. आप में और कॉमन मैन में डिफरेंस है कि नहीं, aspirant of UPSC would understand things far more closely and technically correct. Everyone. So role in polity of such pressure groups. Formal and informal institutions. बहुत सारे ऐसे institutions हैं which we will be discussing in detail. NGOs आगे आएगा. NGOs, self-help groups. NGOs तो मालूम रहेंगे. Non-governmental organizations. कुछ नहीं तो at least some of you must be attached or working with NGOs. I'm quite sure. Some of you कुछ नहीं तो एटलीस्ट आपको कोई मैसेज या कॉल तो डेफिनेटली आया रहेगा व्हाट्सएप पे, भाई इतना कंट्रीब्यूशन की जरूरत है. आया नहीं आया कभी? ये कौन है पैसा मांगने वाले लोग? एनजीओ. सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप भी तो आपने सुना रहेगा. कुछ नहीं सुना रहेगा तो लिज्जत पापड़ डेफिनेटली मालूम है. मालूम है ना? अब इंडस्ट्री बन गया वो, है ना. लिज्जत पापड़ स्टार्टेड एज अ सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप. अभी भी वो काफी हद तक सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप के जैसे ही काम करते. इफ यू लुक एट द वर्किंग ऑफ द वे इट फंक्शंस. Then various groups and associations, donors, charitable trusts, institutions and other stakeholders. Recently एक वीडियो आ रहा था WhatsApp पे. Ratan Tata gave a speech, said that my last part of my life I would dedicate for health and infrastructure in India. है ना, ऐसे सुना आपने? Donating huge amount of money, donors. Health infrastructure तो स्टेट का काम है ना, मतलब गवर्नमेंट ने बनाना चाहिए ना. ये ऐसा तो डेफिनेटली. Then what is it? Pani Foundation, probably you might have heard of it. If you look at their activities, you will find that there are so many businessmen and industrialists, those who give funding to such organizations for their activities. So they are donors. You and me must have donated some money, not in temples and all. I'm talking about for some other cause, which is non-religious, but developmental. है ना? कुछ पैसा नहीं तो शायद किसी को आपने बुक गिफ्ट दिया रहेगा, या फिर गिफ्ट नहीं मतलब डोनेट किया रहेगा, या फिर कभी कुछ पेंसिल एंड कंपास बॉक्स एंड ऑल, है ना. ऐसी कुछ कुछ चीजें हमारे आसपास तो डेफिनेटली होती रहती है. होता है नहीं होता? आई एम हियर नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट अ बेगर, राइट. इट इज योर अल्ट्रुइज्म with intention to help someone. समझते हैं ना? So we have got these institutions in development process. ये लेकिन ये थोड़ा सा इशू है यहाँ पे. ये क्या है? इंडस्ट्री, कौन सी इंडस्ट्री की बात कर रहे हैं हम लोग? इसी इंडस्ट्री की बात कर रहे हैं. Though the word industry is there in your syllabus, it doesn't talk about any manufacturing establishment which manufactures something and then delivers the goods in the market. No. Here we are talking about all the agencies which are contributing. है ना? देखो यहाँ पे लिखा हुआ. Excuse me. Formal and informal associations, agencies. कौन से? Formal मतलब state, जहां पे कोई लॉ रेगुलेट करता है, जहां पे कोई लीगल प्रोविजन है, जहां पे गवर्नमेंट के अंदर एस्टेब्लिश किया गया. या फिर हो सकता है वो प्राइवेट रहे, लेकिन वो फिर फॉर्मल रहे. प्राइवेट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस लाइक टाटास एंड देन अंबानीज एंड बिरला एंड इन्फोसिस एंड ऑल. इनफॉर्मल का मतलब क्या होता है? wherein there is no regulatory mechanism. है ना? NGOs, for example, they are informal agencies, are not regulated by any specific law. So we have FCRA recently, but that is specifically for foreign contribution coming into India. Otherwise, to regulate the structure, functioning, the type, funding source, and etc., we don't have any specific law regulating NGOs. So these NGOs and such organizations are basically informal organizations. But what do they do? Do you really think that they contribute in development? Yes, they do contribute. Must have heard about midday meal scheme. All of you. Do you know there is an NGO called as Akshay Patra, which serves these midday meal to the students? And it is an NGO. And if you compare now the professionalism that they practice in their activities with that of state midday meal के नाम पे फिर रोटी नमक देता है लोगों को, बच्चों को खाने के लिए. ये देखो क्या देते हैं. And that too with precise, उनके पास they have almost every single activity highly calibrated and professionally organized. Now the same thing, now state gives fund to Akshay Patra. Almost 70-75% fund come from the state and rest of the funds come from donors. They could successfully implement the midday meal scheme. And that too in the areas, wherein it would be highly difficult for states to perform to that level. जो proficiency अक्षय पत्र दिखाता है अपने midday meal scheme के execution में, वो proficiency state नहीं दिखाता. अच्छा, दिखा सकता है नहीं दिखा सकता ये बात अलग है. करप्शन वगैरह इसकी बात नहीं कर रहे हम लोग ये बात कर रहे हैं कि स्टेट के साथ साथ कोई एक इनफॉर्मल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है जो काम करता है जो स्टेट के जैसे ही काम है. इसमें उनका प्रॉफिट नहीं है. द एम इज नॉट प्रॉफिट, एम इज व्हाट? सर्विस. द हाई क्वालिटी सर्विस इज डिलीवर्ड टू द बेनिफिशियरी. The objective is attained. So that is what is our motive here. So whether NGO comes, whether NGO performs this task or state machinery performs it, how does it matter? What matters ultimately is you will have to count the effect, or you will have to see the effect, whether that particular activity have or has desired effect on beneficiary or not. If yes, then let us continue with the same. So these NGOs and such agencies which are informal are contributing in the process of development. So development is not a stagnant concept, it is flow concept. It will keep flowing, it will keep growing, evolving. And number of factors, number of agencies, number of institutions would be contributing into this flow. And this number will increase now henceforth. There are reasons for this. There are reasons for this, which we will explain. I will explain in detail while we discuss this part of our syllabus. Now, apart from that, there is this one slide, which I'll take around 5 minutes to explain. And then for today, we will stop. So constitutional posts and different bodies. So you have heard about CAT, Election Commission, the best example. Appointment, powers, functions and responsibilities. West Bengal election, West Bengal, मालूम है? इलेक्शन हुआ वेस्ट बंगाल. किसी ने फाइल कर दिया केस, किसने किया बाद में बात करता है. मद्रास हाईकोर्ट ने. मद्रास हाईकोर्ट ने बोला इलेक्शन कमीशन इज मर्डरर. काय आलं तिकडे लिहून. जस्ट सेड दैट इलेक्शन कमीशन इज मर्डरर. मर्डर किए इन लोगों ने, इलेक्शन कमीशन ने लोगों. इलेक्शन कमीशन वेंट टू सुप्रीम कोर्ट. ये क्या? Now see, there are these two constitutional agencies. Somebody must have approached the court. Something must have gone wrong. Am I correct? Something must definitely have gone. Otherwise, why would somebody go and expect the court to call election commission a murderer? Isn't it? The point that I'm trying to tell you, or the point that I'm trying to make here is, what are responsibilities and functions of such constitutional bodies? जैसे देखो, यूपीएससी बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग चीज है. वो आपको स्टैग्नेंट प्रिपरेशन में आपको बिल्कुल हेल्प नहीं करेगी। 2019 में इलेक्शन हुआ, जनरल इलेक्शन, आप में से कुछ लोगों ने वोट किया रहेगा, शायद कुछ लोगों ने, शायद कुछ लोगों ने नहीं किया रहेगा। पहला क्वेश्चन पेपर सेकंड में, फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन, इट वाज ऑन ईवीएम कंट्रोवर्सी। आपने अभी कभी इलेक्शन में वोटिंग किया है किसी ने? यू प्रेस द बटन, है ना, एंड वेयर इट गोज, वेयर द वोट इज काउंटेड, कहां पे? अच्छा, मशीन में नहीं, आई एम नॉट टेलिंग दैट। There are 5-10 options there. You will push one button. You just hope that like your vote be counted to the expected person or in his account or her account. There is always an ambiguity, isn't it? If that would have been on a paper, you know that okay, stamp यहीं पे है भाई, तो जो देखेगा स्टैंप यहीं पे, तो यहीं पे काउंट होगा, है ना। अब बटन दबाने पे काउंट कहाँ होता है नहीं पता चल रहा लोगों को, तो फिर बोला गया वीवीपैट हम लोग, आप इधर बटन दबाओ, उधर एक आता है ना रिसिप्ट, देखा है आपने? देखा है नहीं देखा? कुछ लोगों ने देखा रहेगा शायद। पता चला बाद में कि उसके काउंटिंग में भी गड़बड़ है, जितने वोट आए, जितने वीवीपैट आए, उसमें मैच नहीं हो रहा। आई थी ना न्यूज, मतलब न्यूज नहीं, ये इशू था। हमारा इशू ये नहीं है कि कौन सी पार्टी क्या कर रही है और कौन सी पार्टी क्या नहीं कर रही है। हमारा इशू ये है कि आई एम अ वोटर, यू आर अ वोटर, राइट? इट इज रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी of election commission to ensure that voter have trust in the election process. Exactly यही question UPSC 2019 GS पेपर 2 क्वेश्चन नंबर 1, अभी रिसेंटली तभी इलेक्शंस हुए थे ना, उन्होंने पूछ लिया उसी इलेक्शन के, लोग पूरा ईवीएम का सब पढ़ तो गिव सजेशंस कि कैसे इंप्रूव कर सकते हैं वोटर कॉन्फिडेंस, ट्रस्ट। बात समझिए आप? तो देखो, हम लोग शायद वही इश्यूज को देखेंगे जो आपको न्यूज़पेपर में मिलेंगे, लेकिन हम लोग न्यूज़पेपर में जैसे लिखा गया और जैसे कॉमन मैन उसको देखता है, वैसे हम लोग उसको डिस्कस नहीं करेंगे, क्योंकि वो हमारा इंटरेस्ट नहीं है। करते का दक्षता है तुम्हारा एवरीबडी, है ना। 12 मेंबर का डिस्क्वालिफिकेशन हुआ ना, ठीक। लोगों को क्या दिखता है? वो पॉलिटिकल, हमें उससे कोई लेना देना नहीं है। हमें क्या दिखना चाहिए? whether it is within the constitutional limits or powers of speaker to do so or not. Our interest is that. So our interest may be also in the fact that to what extent can the members of the house, whether parliament or state, cross their limits. What are the limits, constitutional limits on them? And then if there is a dispute, whether under this constitution, Supreme Court, or for that matter High Court, or any judicial setup is permitted to inquire into such issues or not. हमें क्वेश्चंस ज्यादा से ज्यादा ये इश्यूज पे आ सकते हैं, करेगा। यूपीएससी आपको ये नहीं पूछेगा कि कितने मेंबर्स डिस्क्वालीफाई हुए थे, 13 हुए थे, 12 हुए थे, 11 हुए थे, 10 हुए थे, नहीं। यूपीएससी विल आस्क यू क्वेश्चंस which are on the part of like what are the provisions, constitutional logic and limitations and etc. So please don't forget reading newspaper, but reading it from UPSC's expectation. We will not read randomly, चलो सर ये पढ़ लिया मैंने, वो पढ़ लिया, नहीं। आप एक आर्टिकल पढ़ोगे ना, तो ये देखो पहले कि इसका जरूरत क्या है मुझे पढ़ने के लिए। और एक चीज एकदम कैटेगरिकली और क्लियरली बोल रहा हूं मैं, या आप फॉलो करोगे या आपके ऊपर होगा, यू डिसाइड। मुझे बिल्कुल ये नहीं पूछना, मुझे तो कम से कम कि सर वो ना यूट्यूब में कुछ न्यूज़पेपर के वीडियो आते हैं एनालिसिस के, वो मैं देखूं कि नहीं देखूं, वो आप डिसाइड करो। सर मैं न्यूज़पेपर नहीं पढ़ूंगा, ये नहीं चलेगा। आप रोज पढ़ोगे न्यूज़पेपर, अभी कोई नोट्स नहीं निकालेगा, जरूरत नहीं है। न्यूज़पेपर भूलना नहीं, लेकिन ठीक है ना। नहीं तो आपको जितना मैं इंटेंसिटी से बोल रहा हूँ वो कम अगर है, तो जो नेक्स्ट अटेम्प्ट देंगे जिस दिन प्रीलिम्स है उस दिन आपको बहुत ज्यादा इंटेंसिटी से लगेगा कि काश न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ा जाता। अभी ये 2022 का हुआ था प्रीलिम्स, आप देखो उसको। मैं ये नहीं बोल रहा हूँ कि आप बाकी कोई करंट का सोर्स नहीं देखो, आप जो चाहे मैगजीन पढ़ो, मेरा कोई ये नहीं है उसमें ऑब्जेक्शन, होना भी नहीं चाहिए। आप विजन का है, यूनिक का आपको मिलेगा मटेरियल, वो इनसाइट और आईएएस फॉर श्योर और क्या क्या आता है, जो भी पूरा लिस्ट बनाओ चाहो तो, है ना, उसमें से सब पढ़ लो। आप बहुत टाइम है आपके पास। न्यूज़पेपर लेकिन हर एक बंदा पढ़ेगा यहाँ पे। एवरी वन ऑफ यू विल रीड न्यूज़पेपर रिलीजियसली। सर ते मागच्या 7 दिवसाचे राहिले, मग एकदमच बसू का घेऊन? म्हणजे गोष्ट अशी आहे की तुम्हाला न्यूजपेपर वाचण्यापेक्षा महत्वाचं काहीतरी तुमच्या आयुष्यात घडत असेल, बरोबर ना. मग त्या दोनच प्रोबॅबली गोष्टी असू शकतात की देर इज समथिंग दॅट इज हॅपन्ड इन युअर लाईफ विच has बड़ी इन योर फैमिली, अनफॉर्चुनेट इट इज, समझ सकता हूं. एक दूसरा, सर न्यूज़पेपर में से समझ में नहीं आ रहा पढ़ना, ये दो ही चीजें हो सकती है. सर मेरी शादी है आज, सुबह उठ के पढ़ लो न्यूज़पेपर. न्यूज़पेपर कोई नहीं भूलेगा, है ना. मैं मानता हूं कि आपको अभी इनिशियली टाइम लगेगा उसको, और आपके पास इनिशियली अभी टाइम है, उसको पढ़ो, गेट एक्वेंटेड विथ न्यूज़पेपर एंड देन फिल्टर इट. आपको मेरे ख्याल से इट विल टेक around 1.5 hours to 2 hours to finish the newspaper after around 2.5 months or so. You don't need to read each and every newspaper, each and every news. You'll be able to filter it. आसानी से फिल्टर कर पाओगे. फिल्टर क्या है? प्रीवियस ईयर क्वेश्चन पेपर्स एंड सिलेबस. ये लेके बैठना रोज न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ते वक्त, ठीक है ना. कळलं का सगळ्यांना? Now last point, references. सर काय वाचायचं? NCERT, that's it. सर लक्ष्मीकांत वाचा, डीडी बसू, अजून काय? जो आपको लगता है वो पढ़ो. लक्ष्मीकांत पढ़ना है बिल्कुल पढ़ो. मैं लक्ष्मीकांत से नहीं पढ़ा, बिल्कुल भी नहीं. I will not take Lakshmikant as a reference, as I don't find that as a reference. Right? I'll teach you the same things from other references, but I don't discourage you people. From reading Lakshmikant. You do that. That is best compilation. At one place you can get number of things, but that is basically nothing but, sort of a notes, right? You refer it, no problem. उसमें से कुछ क्वेश्चन से आपको लेके आओ, आई विल आंसर दिस क्वेश्चंस, नो प्रॉब्लम. लेकिन सर मैंने आज चालू किया था लक्ष्मीकांत पढ़ना, 1 महीने के बाद खत्म हो गया. आई डोंट वांट यू पीपल टू रीड लक्ष्मीकांत लाइक दिस, एंड फॉर दैट मैटर नो बुक. अगर हम लोग यहाँ पे फंडामेंटल राइट्स की बात कर रहे हैं तो आप सिर्फ फंडामेंटल राइट्स पढ़ोगे, और सिर्फ वही पढ़ोगे जब तक फंडामेंटल राइट्स हम लोग देख रहे हैं. कुछ समझा? अगर प्रीएम्बल हम लोग देख रहे, समझ लीजिए 2 लेक्चर लगेंगे शायद हमें प्रीएम्बल के लिए. हो सकता है 1 दिन में खत्म हो जाए, क्योंकि अगर 2 कॉन्सेक्यूटिव लेक्चर है तो 1 दिन में खत्म हो जाए. नहीं तो हो सकता है कि 2 दिन लग जाए, है ना. वो 2 दिन और वो हफ्ता आप सिर्फ प्रीएम्बल का ही चैप्टर पढ़ोगे लक्ष्मीकांत से, अगर लक्ष्मीकांत से पढ़ोगे. जितने बार पढ़ सकते हो सकता है 1 हफ्ते में आप 100 बार पढ़ लो, वही चैप्टर पढ़ोगे. और मैं आपको बताऊंगा कि आगे मैं क्या पढ़ाऊंगा, वो वाला चैप्टर पढ़ के आओ. हे कळलंय सगळ्यांना? अगर आपको लग रहा है कि आपने लक्ष्मीकांत पहले पढ़ा हुआ है, एनसीईआरटी पढ़े हुए है ना, तो आप ऐसे समझ लो कि आपने नहीं पढ़ा हुआ और वापस पढ़ोगे. 3 years batch students being more particular, I know that you must have actually already had some sort of lectures on the same, right? But then please take efforts again to read the same. और एक बार पढ़ेंगे हम लोग। कौन सा एनसीईआरटी पढ़ना है? 11th स्टैंडर्ड एनसीईआरटी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एट वर्क। एक ही एनसीईआरटी पढ़ोगे आप फिलहाल, ठीक, यही एक ही एनसीईआरटी पढ़ना है। कितने बार पढ़ सकते हो? जितने बार पढ़ सकते हो उतने बार पढ़ो, ठीक। और इसी मेथड से समझ लीजिए अभी नेक्स्ट लेक्चर पॉलिटी का, इट विल टेक लिटिल टाइम, राइट। टिल देन यू कैन लाइक, आपने चैप्टर नंबर 1 ले लिया, उसको पढ़ा आपने आज 1 बार, 2 बार, 3 बार, 4 बार, 5 बार, तो 5 टाइम्स आप नोट कर लो। एवरी चैप्टर यू विल रीड 5 टाइम्स एंड दैट वे यू विल कंप्लीट योर एनसीईआरटी 5 टाइम्स, नॉट फर्स्ट टू लास्ट एट वन गो, देन सेकेंड, थर्ड, फोर्थ, फिफ्थ, ऐसे नहीं चाहिए। कळलं का? लाइन टू लाइन। और मैं जब बोल रहा हूं कि 5 बार एक चैप्टर पढ़ोगे, इसका मतलब रिवीजन नहीं है, 5 बार आप पढ़ोगे। इज दिस थिंग क्लियर टू एवरीवन? एब्सोल्युटली क्लियर। चलो गुड। आणि आणखीन एक बाब, सिलेबस बाय नेक्स्ट लेक्चर पेपर सेकंड का बाय हार्ट होना चाहिए। एकच तुम्हाला अख्ख्या वर्षभरामध्ये एकच गोष्ट मी बाय हार्ट करायला सांगेन, बाकी सब मैं आपको इंश्योर करूंगा कि यू अंडरस्टैंड इट, यू विल नेवर फॉरगेट इट। सिलेबस बाय हार्ट करना जमेल ना? 1-1.5 आठवड्यामध्ये तेवढं जमेल? चलो गुड, थँक्यू सो मच, सी यू इन द नेक्स्ट लेक्चर।